Howdy doody Year 10 historians, it's time to talk about Mabo. Mabo is the name of a man, Eddie Mabo. He's a Torres Strait Islander who took the Queensland government all the way to the High Court and won native title to land. And we'll explain what that means a bit more. So the case is just called Mabo because that's his last name. Okay, our learning goals for today are: you're going to know what the Mabo decision was. You're going to know what native title is. And you're going to know a little bit about who Eddie Mabo was, the guy who started it all, the activist. And you're going to be able to use historical thinking concepts. Do a little activity on that. Okay. So, the Mabo decision. In 1982, a group of Torres Strait Islanders from Mer Island, although it's, I was looking it up on Google Maps and they call it Murray Island, but the indigenous people call it Mer Island, so there you go. Anyway, in 1982, a group of Torres Strait Islanders took the Queensland government to court. You can do that, you can take the government to court, there you go. Why? The government was trying to prevent islanders from using their land. They were not happy with that, they've been living there for thousands of years. So they took them to court. The court ruled against them, so the initial court case was unsuccessful. So these islanders, led by Eddie Mabo, went to the High Court, which is the highest court in Australia. So what happened there? On the 3rd of June 1992, in High Court, the judgment was that the Meriam people from Mer Island of the Torres Strait did have native title over their traditional lands. Yeah, first time a legal decision saying that Indigenous people had title over their traditional lands was made. So this is known as the Mabo decision. And that recognised legally that European settlement did not wipe out native title. Yeah, so that was the thing that put the final nail in the coffin of this idea of terra nullius. Yeah, so the British, when they first came to Australia, said, oh, it's terra nullius, which is Latin, an old language, meaning land belonging to no one. And finally, in 1992, the High Court threw out that idea. So just to give you an idea about where it is, that's Mer Island there, zooming all the way out, and you'll see it's off the coast, northern coast of Queensland. It's in between Queensland and Indonesia. There you go. So here's some of those activists saying that they want land, not handouts. And this is it being reported in the newspaper. Mabo, history is made. There you go. So we've been talking about native title. Of course, the question must be asked, what is native title? And here's the definition of native title. It's the right of Indigenous peoples to own the traditional lands and waters as recognised by common law. Yeah. So by Indigenous people we mean original inhabitants of the land. So native title is the legal right for them to own traditional lands and waters. This is the man himself, Eddie Koiki Mabo. He was the activist that led the Meriam people, the Mer Islanders, to that successful court challenge. And here is a photo of Mer Island. So you see it's pretty tiny, and there's just people living just around on the beaches. Yeah. Okay, Eddie Mabo, the man, the myth, the legend. He was the man who led the Meriam Islanders to victory. He became a political activist in the 1970s. Unfortunately, he died the year before the High Court win, so he didn't live to see that his activism was successful in the High Court, which is very sad. So here's a quote from his manifesto. This is Eddie Mabo. My name is Edward Mabo, but my island name is Koiki. My family has occupied the land here for hundreds of years before Captain Cook was born. They are now trying to say I cannot own it. The present Queensland government is a friendly enemy of the black people, as they like to give you the Bible and take away your land. We should stop calling them boss. We must be proud to live in our own palm leaf houses like our fathers before us. There you go. Okay, today's activity is conceptual thinking. So here you'll see there's the 6 historical thinking concepts that the curriculum is based around: cause and effect, historical perspectives, primary sources, ethics, significance, continuity and change. I want you to pick one of those concepts and write a short 3 or 4 sentence paragraph explaining how that idea helps to understand the Mabo decision. So you could say continuity and change helps understand the Mabo decision because some things stayed the same, blah 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 blah, but other things changed, blah 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 blah. 3 or 4 sentences, pick one concept and explain how it helps understand the Mabo decision. Our first video for today is Behind the News. As you know, I'm a big fan of Behind the News. Check this one out.
Today is Mabo Day. It's the anniversary of a court decision that recognised for the first time that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have a special connection to the land of their ancestors. So we asked special guest reporter Dwayne to give us his insight into what that connection is all about. But first, a warning to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander viewers: this story contains images of people who've died.
My name is Dwayne Coulthard. I'm an Adjumata Gugutha person from South Australia. On June the 3rd, we always celebrate Mabo Day. It has been a great day for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in recognising Australia's acknowledgement of prior existence of Aboriginal people in Australia. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have been here for tens of thousands of years. This land has always been important to us, but long ago life was very different. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people were the first Australians. They lived all over the country as different groups of people with their own languages, ways of life and dreaming stories.
The Mimis are happy spirits. They come out as night falls to keep the country tidy. They look after the land.
In different areas, they lived in different ways. They developed skills and knowledge based on the environment. But everywhere, the relationship to the land was strong. They took what they needed and made sure the areas where they lived and hunted were allowed to regenerate and survive. They cared for the land and respected it. But things changed when European settlers arrived. During settlement in 1788, the British then employed the doctrine of terra nullius, which means that nobody essentially lived in Australia when the British arrived, which we now know today as untrue. The settlers thought their own way of life was the best way to live, and that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people should try to behave more like them. For a long time, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders had very few rights and no claim to the land of their ancestors. In the 1980s, a guy called Mabo fought the idea of terra nullius in court, and in 1992 he won. On that date, we now celebrate Mabo Day. The Mabo decision was about recognising the continuing culture of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Australia, that despite colonisation in 1788, the culture still continued today and will continue on in the future. That's really important because while a lot of time has passed, for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, our connection to land is still very strong. Your home is always where your people have come from. And it's important now for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander young people to acknowledge that, to embrace that and be proud about their history. And a big part of that is their connection to country and their ancestors' connection to country that have spanned thousands of years. There have been many challenges for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, but one thing won't change. Your country is a significant part of who you are, and that will never change, despite the fact that you may live in different areas of Australia, or you might not live on your local traditional lands, but you still have that connection to the country as a whole. And I think that has been something that has continued on to this very day, is that idea that we belong to this land and this land belongs to us.
Our second video today is Australia's land rights, the Mabo decision, and native title. Take it away.
Terra nullius is a Latin term meaning land belonging to no one, used as a justification to possess land in the European age of imperialism. It gave people rights to claim land that was seen as uninhabited and, in essence, meant finders keepers. When British Captain James Cook occupied Australia in 1770, this legal term was used to justify the denial of the natives' connection to the land. The land was taken and occupied as Crown land in the name of the King of Great Britain. It was no longer the Indigenous people's rights to use the land as they please. Under international law, the land was now British. For many years after that, there remained a debate. Whose land was Australia? Is terra nullius a justification for taking another's land? Why did James Cook and his British occupiers feel that they had the right to take the land? These questions sparked many protests and fights for land rights between Indigenous and non-Indigenous across the country. The real change in the fight for land rights came with the case of Eddie Mabo. 212 years after Cook possessed the land for British gain, Eddie Mabo realised the lack of rights that he as a native of Australia had over his own land on Murray Island. Murray Island was considered a part of the state of Queensland's Crown land, and Mabo and the Meeran people who had a connection to the land for thousands of years before actually had no rights to build on, farm or use the land freely. This made Mabo angry, and Eddie and 4 of his friends set out to fight for his people to be regarded as the legal owners of the land. He argued that Indigenous people had a true connection to this land and that terra nullius denied them of this. He struggled for 10 years to gain the right to his land. First, he filed a case against the state of Queensland, which he lost. He then, with the help of lawyers and others who believed he had a good case, went to the High Court of Australia and fought to nullify the principle of terra nullius altogether, arguing that Aboriginal people had a native title to their land. On 3rd June 1992, the High Court judges upheld the claim and ruled that the lands of this continent were indeed not terra nullius. The new native title doctrine nullified terra nullius and corrected a wrong that was made many years before. In 1993, legislation for a Native Title Act was passed that recognised and protected some people's connection with the land, validating this pre-existing relationship. This has enabled many Indigenous families and groups to prove that the land is theirs, giving them chances to claim native title. The outworking of land rights in Australia has not been very easy and clear-cut since this act. There has been hundreds of claims of native title and thousands of negotiated agreements between Indigenous peoples for land rights. Undoing a mistake like a land claim is not easy when so many different people now consider a place their home.
Okay then, your reflection activity today. Eddie Mabo won land rights for Indigenous Australians. I want you to come up with a plus, a minus and an interesting. So something that is good about that, something that's not so good about that, and something that you just find interesting about that. So 3 short sentences for your reflection activity for today. Your homework. I just want you to read something. It's the simple Wikipedia article about the Mabo decision. So go to bit.ly/simple Mabo. It's like 5 minutes reading, not even. For those of you that are keen as beans, here's a little bit of bonus homework for you. Check out the Mabo case. That's the AATSIS website, bit.ly/Mabo 2020. Putting myself on the spot there, see if I can remember what that stands for. The Association for Indigenous Aboriginal Torres Strait Islanders something. I can't remember what that acronym stands for, but have a check of that website. It's a good summary of the Mabo case. Thanks for getting stuck into today's lesson, and as I always say, keep it real.